Welcome all of you friends again. It's Right Shikshan Sanstha's RBNB College and myself Limkar Shubhangi Subhash. It's our second lecture of 11th standard. From your section second, we are going to start here. From it 2.1, the poem name is here, Cherry Tree. The poem is written by the poet Ruskin Bond. Now earlier, we have seen the introduction of the poet there. Now today we are going to see the first extract on your textbook page number 66. The first extract we are going to start here. I am going to read it. Here it is on page number 66. 8 years have passed since I placed my cherry seed in the grass. Must have a tree of my own, I said, and watered it once and went to bed and forgot. But cherries have a way of growing, though no one's caring very much or knowing. And suddenly, that summer near the end of May, I found a tree had come to stay. It was very small, 5 months child, lost in the tall grass, running wild. Goats ate the leaves, the grass cutter's scythe split it apart, and a monsoon blight shriveled the slender stem. Even so, next spring I watched 3 new shoots grow. The young tree struggled, upward thrust its arms in a fresh, fierce lust for light and air and sun. Now, in this extract, the writer is the main character of this story, of this poem there. He is main protagonist of this poem. That's why Ruskin Bond is used all the first person pronouns here in this poem. So 8 years before, first 2 lines there, see, 8 years have passed since I placed my cherry seed in the grass. So the poet Ruskin Bond had placed cherry seeds in the grass 8 years before there, in his yard of home. Must have a tree of my own, I said. At that time, the poet thought that he wants something which belongs to him. The owner of that thing, he must be himself only. And that's why the poet said that I want there the tree of mine, which is my only. And that's why this thought came in the mind of the poet there, and that's why the poet placed or put there the seeds of cherry in the grass. And later on, the poet watered it once, just in only one time. The poet watered that seed and went to bed, and he went to the bed and totally forgot about that seed of cherry. Now this incident happened there, and next what happened there? But cherries have a way of growing. Here no one was going to care about that plant, about that seed, but then also cherry had its way of growing there, its way of its own growing there. And when cherry have a way of growing, though no one's caring very much or knowing, no one else was knowing about this seed of the cherry placed by the writer in the tall grass there. So no one was knowing about that, as well as no one was going to care about that seed, so that afterwards suddenly that summer near the end of May. There are lots of seasons mentioned by the poet in this first extract. The first season is mentioned by the poet in this line, and that is here summer. So suddenly when summer season was appeared at the end of the May there, what happened? I found a tree had come to stay. At the end of summer season, the poet noticed that a small cherry plant was there. So no one was caring about that plant. No one is caring. No one was knowing about that seed. Then also, at the end of that May month, that was summer season. In that season, the poet found there a small sapling of cherry tree, which was alive there, which was staying there. It was very small. That plant was very small there, the cherry tree plant, or we called it as sapling also. That cherry plant was very small. It is only the 5 months child, because here, as far as the concern here, the poet placed this cherry seed in the grass at that time, and when the poet saw at the end of May season there, or summer season there, at that time it happens only, it took there only 5 months to grow up, and that's why the age of that plant or that sapling of cherry of 5 months child lost in the tall grass running wild. So everywhere in the yard of the poet there was a tall grass which was considered as wild. Now in that tall wild grass there was this sapling of cherry, and this cherry plant easily lost in that tall wild grass. Goats ate the leaves, as well as the goats also, or the cattle, lots of cattle ate the leaves of this sapling. The grass cutter's scythe split it apart. The grass cutter's scythe. Here scythe means a kind of tool which cuts the grass, which has long sharp blade. It is called as the scythe. So grass cutter also, the person, the gardener also cuts down the branches of that sapling, as well as which this scythe split the cherry plant apart there, and a monsoon blight. And when there was monsoon season, at that time there was a kind of disease of plant. It is called as a blight. Blight means what? A kind of plant disease. So when there was monsoon season, rainy season, in that season the plant had a kind of blight there, a kind of plant disease there. Because of all these barriers, because of all these difficulties, this plant overcame there all these difficulties, all these barriers. So what were the barriers here mentioned by the poet? That at firstly the poet forgot totally about that seed which was placed by him in that grass, and then next to it that when this seed placed by the poet in the grass, at that time this seed became or turns into here a small plant or sapling there. At that time in the tall grass it was easily lost there, and when it grows up, at that time goats ate the leaves of that plant, as well as the grass cutter split it apart with the tool of scythe, as well as when the monsoon season was there. In that monsoon season, the plant had a kind of disease. That's why it damaged there, and it became dried there. The meaning of shriveled here means dried. It became dried there, the slender stem, the delicate stem of that plant dried up because of all those things. Even so, then also, next spring, the next season also mentioned by the poet in the next lines here, and that is here spring. In next spring season, I watched, the poet watched there, 3 new shoots grow. 3 new shoots grow on that plant of cherry. The young tree struggle. So whatever here the barriers came across this plant, these all barriers, we can say the struggle of the sapling there, of cherry plant there, and lots of struggle it faces there, and that's why it alive there. The young tree struggle, lots of struggle the plant did there. Upward thrust. Thrust means what here? That thrust means push forcefully. So the plant pushes itself very forcefully. Where? Its arms. Arms means what here? The plant's branches. Means what? The plant very forcefully pushes its branches in a fresh, fierce lust. Fierce means aggressive. So it was so aggressive there. For what? For what the plant was so aggressive there? Lust means what here? The lust means here desire. So the plant's desire was extremely for what thing? So the plant of cherry tree was extremely desire for sunlight, that is for light and air and sun. Means here the branches of the cherry tree plant extremely longing for or desire for light, air and sun. Then we are going to see from this extract the figures of speech. The first one's figure of speech is used in the first extract, and that is here I want to tell about personification. Now see here, in the line, it was very small, 5 months child. In this line, the figure of speech is personification, because in this line, 5 months child, this quality is especially of human being child, but now it is referred to here cherry plant there, and that's why we can say here the human quality is given to plant, that is 5 months child. So we can say it here in this line, the figure of speech personification is used. Now next figure of speech in the same this line, and that is here, it was very small, 5 months child, lost in the tall grass running wild. So here the figure of speech is antithesis, because in the first line, that is small, this word is contrast to the word tall. So we can say here the figure of speech antithesis. In antithesis, anti means opposite, thesis means ideas. 2 opposite ideas are used in the 2 lines here, and that is here small and tall. So we can say here the figure of speech antithesis. Now next is here the figure of speech is used here alliteration. The grass cutters scythe split it apart. In the spelling scythe as well as in the spelling split, in these 2 spelling the sound s is S letter, not letter we say here, S sound, sound is repeated. So we can say here the figure of speech alliteration, sound repeatedly repeated in these two words twice. So we can say here the figure of speech alliteration. Now the same figure of speech into the next line, and that is here, shriveled the slender stem. In this line, the figure of speech again here alliteration. In the words shriveled, slender and stem, these three words, the first sound, and that is S, the beginning sound of every words here, that is slender, stem and shriveled. In these all words S sound is repeated, so we can say here the figure of speech is alliteration. Now next to it, that I want to give here another example, one more example of personification, and that is here, the young tree struggle, upward thrust its arms in a fresh fierce lust. So in these lines, the figure of speech is personification, because the human quality, and that is here, lifted its arms in a fresh fierce lust. This human quality is given to the plant, the cherry plant. That's why we can say here human quality given to the non-living thing there, that is plant there, and so we can say here the figure of speech personification. Okay, now come towards the next extract. In this extract we see there the writer placed cherry seed in the grass, as well as the poet has mentioned different seasons. The seasons we have came across here, and these seasons are summer, then as well as spring, and then monsoon. Next is here the poet's minute observation of the steady growth of the cherry tree, also mentioned in this extract, as well as lots of struggleness of the cherry plant especially for the surviveness, is also depicted here by the poet, and lots of figures of speech we have seen here. The first one is personification, antithesis and alliteration. So there is also repetition also, that is in the fourth line, and watered it once and went to bed. So here repetition, what is in repetition? In repetition, the repetition of the particular word more than 2 times, then we called it as repetition. So in this line, and word is repeatedly repeated twice in this line, so we can say that the figure of speech repetition is used in the fourth line. Now second extract we are going to take here. I am going to read it, that I could only wait as one who watched wandering while time and the rain made a miracle from green growing pen. I went away next year, spent a season in Kashmir, came back thinner, rather poor, but richer by a cherry tree at my door. 6 feet high, my own dark cherry, and I could scarcely believe it a berry, ripened and jeweled in the sun, hung from a branch just one. And next year there were blossoms, small, pink, fragile, quick to fall at the merest breath, the sleepiest breeze. So here now the poet know that the plant was alive there, lots of struggle the plant did there. So the poet was impatient, so curious to see the growth of the furtherness of that plant. The young sapling took its time to grow up, and through lots of seasons there, and the writer could only wait. He felt it was miracle, the miracle of nature which was going before his eyes there. So who watched here? I could only wait. The writer was only going to wait there as one who watched. The writer has the work. He was very impatient to see the growth of the the growth of that plant. Because we know that children also very eager to know that when these children also placed some kind of seed there or the plant there every morning, and after some moments also, or after some minutes or hours there, lots of children there want to see whether the plant or the seed I placed in the soil that grow or not there. So it is a kind of that kind of feeling the writer had in his childhood there. So I could only wait as one who watched, wondering. The writer has lots of surprise nets, or because of this is called as the miracle of nature. So it is called the wandering, while time and the rain made a miracle. When the rainy season came, at that time it made a miracle, a magic. From green growing pen, the plant is called as the green growing pen because lots of struggle the plant did there. In earlier stanza, we have seen that lots of barriers the plant faced there. So from green growing pen, I went away next year. So in next year, the poet went to spend a season in Kashmir. For some reason, the poet want to spend a season in Kashmir there. So when he came back from that Kashmir, what happened? That came back thinner, rather poor. So physically, the poet became so thinner there. Physically, he became so poor there. It is called as the so poor there, physically so thinner there, but richer by a cherry tree at my door. But when he returned back from Kashmir, at that time, he saw the cherry tree which was totally grown up in the yard of the poet there. So at that time, the poet felt that I am a richer person than any other person in this world, because he had with him the cherry tree. Though financially he was poor, though physically he was thinner there, but at this moment when he saw the cherry plant in his yard, at that time he felt that he was richer than any other person in the world. That's why it is said that, but richer by a cherry tree at my door. 6 feet high, my own dark cherry. Actually, this tree only had the height of 6 feet there, and my own dark cherry, because earlier we have seen that the writer wants there the something which is belongs to him there, and the cherry tree totally belongs to him only, because he himself was placed the seed of cherry tree in the grass there. So 6 feet high, my own dark cherry, he saw there, the writer says, and I could scarcely believe. Scarcely means what here? In the second extract, so hardly. It's too hardly, almost not, or hardly there. It is called as a scarcely. So when very hardly he was not able to believe that whatever on the plant he saw there, and what was he saw there? That believe it a berry. It had a berry on that plant, on that cherry plant. It had a cherry, we called it as a berry. Okay, it had a berry or cherry on that plant. So it's unbelievable to the poet. So he said that I could scarcely, almost not, or hardly believe that it was a berry or cherry there. which was ripened, which was totally ripe there and jeweled in the sun there. So it is like jeweled. It is like the jewel which was shine in the sun. So it was ripened, it was jeweled there, shine there in the sun. Hung from a branch just one. It was just only one there in number, that berry, and that berry or cherry hung from a branch. It was hung from a branch, and it was just only one there. And next year there were blossoms small, and when after this season, next year there were lots of flowering there to this cherry tree. So these blossoms or these flowers had their pink, fragile, quick to fall at the merest breath, the slightest breeze. So fragile, what do you mean by fragile? It's too delicate. Fragile means too delicate to fall. It's called as the fragile. So when next year the poet saw here lots of flowers on cherry tree there. So these flowers we can call here blossoms, flowers that bloom on trees. So it is called as the blossoms. So these blossoms had the color pink there, as well as these flowers are too delicate as well as quick to fall. It's too delicate. In what way we can call it's too delicate there? Because even the merest means what here? Even the taking breathing of yourself, because of the breathing of yourself, it also quickly fall down there. So that it is called as a fragile. As well as even the slightest breeze. When the slightest breeze also go away from that tree, from that blossom, it easily fell down there. So that's why here the poet said that the pink, fragile, quick to fall at the merest breath, the slightest breeze. Okay, now we are going to stop here. Before, I want to give here one more example of figure of speech, and that is climax. In the next in the last lines of the extract, that is pink, fragile, quick to fall, quick to fall at the merest breath, the slightest breeze. In these two lines we can say here the figure of speech is climax, because here the words are arranged in increasing order of importance, because here what is more important, that is come lastly in this line, that is slightest breeze, and which is not very important, that is came earlier, that is pink, fragile, like this. So we can say here the figure of speech is climax. Okay, thank you.